Hello and welcome to another video here at Royle Observations. Today's topic is consistency is key. Now, I was thinking about this topic a little bit. I haven't written about it in the books, so this is a video just purely on a brand new topic. And the reason I want to talk about it today was I was at a friend's place. I was looking out of the window and I saw a bird's nest in a tree. And I was thinking about this bird's nest. It was built in a really awkward spot at the very top of the tree. There was hardly any branches to kind of hold it together, and yet all these twigs which had been laced together had created this really strong foundation for this nest to be built on. And I was thinking, if I were building that nest myself, putting on the very first twigs would have been so difficult. For those like 1-2 twigs on like a branch that was like maybe like had like 3 spokes like that, to get a stake to stay there and not to fall off, must have taken so much time and patience by the birds to build it. And yet they kept at it with consistency. When you keep putting down enough twigs, eventually they all hold each other together really strongly. A bit like the way when you have loads of spaghetti and you put it together, it won't break, but one spaghetti will break. It's just putting in the time and the effort to get them all together, and it'll kind of average out to be strong. And I thought that whole idea, that kind of analogy, was so true for so many other things in life. Like, for example, with this YouTube channel, making 1 or 2 videos now might feel like those twigs at the beginning, but once you have them all together, you get a really like good picture, a very kind of strong foundation. Or it could be similar with, for example, with wealth. At the beginning, you've very little money in life unless you're born into it. But most people are kind of don't have that much money in the beginning, and you're saving a little bit here, a little bit there. Now, I feel like a big struggle, but in the end, when you have loads of money or you have more financial independence, it's really strong. So it's all about that consistency in life, having that constant kind of curve upwards. A bit like a different video I talked about before with the graphs going up and down. And I thought, this idea of consistency is key. Consistency is so much more important than initial enthusiasm. Like, initial enthusiasm is like that moment you have when you're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this year, it's going to be great, I'm going to start this project, I'm going to do really well in school, I'm going to study really hard, and on that one day you do loads of study, you kind of psych yourself all up, this is going to be the year, and then that kind of enthusiasm naturally has to kind of fade. It's just natural. So you end up not doing the amount that you thought you were going to do. And I suppose if you could maybe avoid this big massive surge of inspiration and enthusiasm, or at least if you could use it in a way throughout the year where you could do it consistently, you're going to do so much more. It's also like that thing people say, you underestimate what you can do in a week. You overestimate what you can do in a week, but you underestimate what you can do in a year. And they say that about 1 year, 10 years, etc., etc. And it really is quite true. I mean, in 1 year, 365 days, if you spend just like a few minutes every single day, that's hours and hours put into a project, hours and hours put into, maybe it's in the gym, maybe it's sports, maybe it could be anything, right? Anything that has a bit of meaning. Like, for example, writing the book, just a few minutes every single day, add it together, makes it very easy because you're doing a little bit all the time, and you're doing a little bit not to the point where you get sick of it and you kind of you give up on it, but more that you're actually enjoying it. Same with going to the gym. Going to gym just for maybe half an hour instead of 2 hours a day. Just going in for a short amount of time, enjoying yourself, doing the weights you want to do on days where you don't fully feel like it, but making sure you get there. Making sure that you put in the time, and therefore having this kind of consistent wave of energy, this kind of great momentum, this momentum that builds up. That really is key in my opinion. This, and bring it back to like the idea with the birds building the nest. Like, we're all building some form of nests. Obviously it's an analogy, but whether we're trying to do something of meaning, even things that aren't so meaningful, like it could be even just trying to get better at school, trying to be better at sports. Everything kind of starts like this. We really start with nothing. Like, we're really starting at zero at everything. It really is like building that nest, and the first few steps are often really the hardest, but then after a while you really start getting things together, and you can look back and you can see your nest is starting to come together. You can really start to imagine how useful it'll be to you. You have a bit of pride. It's like really like a very interesting journey, and yeah, you won't really get full utility out of it until it's completely finished, but it's the journey that counts in this respect. This kind of consistency, the ability to stick at something of worth, will really stick to you in life, because it means once you can do it once, you'll be able to do it again and again, because you understand the steps, you understand the stages you go through, the kind of ups and downs of such a project. It's a bit like learning languages. Learning a first language is quite difficult, other than the one you already speak. But if you're able to speak loads of languages, it becomes easier and easier because you kind of start to understand the building blocks. You see patterns from other languages. It just all comes together so much quicker, so much more efficiently. And I can really like admire this kind of consistency. Like, it's something that we can't all do so easily. So when I see it, I'm really thinking, wow, that's really something that I can appreciate. Like, when you see someone who's really worked on their craft, whether it's in sports, in business, arts, whatever, it really is something that is so admirable, especially when they have consistency across the board. When you can see that they've really had a struggle and they've really put in the time anyway, and they still kind of stuck at it, tried their best. It really is one of the best traits we can have as people, is this kind of this consistent drive, rather than like the super aggressive drive at the beginning where you're kind of really going up like this and you're doing everything really well for like a couple of days, couple of hours. What's much better is this consistency. Another example which I think is quite good is going to the gym. So obviously the Royle mindset, we have a bit about exercise and gym in there, and the way it's good to have some form of muscle resistance training for everybody. I think everybody should do a little bit. It's like such a benefit for you long term, for bone density and all of this. So with that in mind, it's much better to do a little bit of gym throughout your life regularly and consistently, rather than have like a phase of 2 or 3 years where you do an awful lot and then you do nothing ever again. Your diet goes back to rubbish and you really lose all the benefits you had for those couple of years. Whereas obviously the preferred version is you do a little bit regularly, and you do it all your life long, and you really retain the benefits without any of the negative side effects of injuries or whatever, simply because you were consistent, you paced yourself, and you did things in your own time. Quite similar to running a very long race, for example. You need to learn how to pace yourself. You need to be able to pace yourself in all things that are of meaningful value, whether it's building a project, again, whether it's like writing the book, understanding when you need to step back from it, understanding when, example again in the gym, when you should do maybe one set less rather than one set too many, to avoid injury, to avoid burnout. These things, are very valuable when you understand them, and when you can start to kind of catch yourself and say, oh, I've reached a point now where I should take a step back. I'd rather take a step back today and be able to go again tomorrow than push myself too far over the limit. Now, I understand sometimes you need to push yourself beyond the comfort zones, and it really is up to us to figure out where those points are. But there definitely is a point where too much is too much, and it's not really worth sacrificing long-term consistency for a short-term, I suppose, personal best or whatever. Sometimes these things aren't worth it. At least I think it's not 50-50. Like, I would definitely think consistency long-term is worth more than staggered kind of personal bests, just pushing it for the sake of pushing it. Now, obviously, it depends on the individual and at their point in time. Whether that is, again, something to do with business or health or fitness or a project, it obviously all depends. But at the end of the day, the beautiful thing really is this consistency to be able to stick at something and to improve over time. That's basically all I wanted to say, just about becoming aware, I suppose, of where you are doing projects and where you might find that they aren't consistent. And maybe that means you need to look at other projects that you're doing and need to kind of like maybe slow them down and really figure out which ones you need to focus on, figure out which ones are worth your time, figure out the ones where you're maybe lacking a bit, and say, well, I need to prioritize things. You can't do everything at once, and you can't do it properly a lot of the time, unless you've gotten to a place where you're very well organized and you've really managed to pace yourself. That's the only way you can do it. You need to be able to say, right, my priorities are this, this, and this. These other two things aren't so important. I'll do a little bit now and again, which is still consistency over the long term, but at least you will get to them and you will get to these things and you will do them properly. Definitely learning to prioritize and maybe delegate is one of the best ways to be consistent throughout. So yeah, that was just kind of a short video. I just really thought it was cool watching these birds make this nest. I thought that was a really cool analogy, and I felt inspired to make the video. That's basically the end of my notes for this. So I'm off to the gym now, so hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you again. See ya, bye.